So yesterday I posted a photograph of the red squirrels that I've been photographing recently. A number of people come back and asked what system do you use to support the camera? Obviously because I'm using a long lens. So previously, I'd be using the tripod, three-legged tripod, very heavy. You're adding to that a gimbal head, or you're adding a fluid head, or a ball head. These are all quite heavy, and the difficulty was when you saw the bird or the squirrel, you were quickly getting the tripod out, put three legs out, put the camera onto the locking plate, and it had gone, and you missed your shot. So this invention was made by a well-respected wildlife photographer, a gentleman called Colin Brister, and he's invented this basic, simple process, the SpeedieGimbal. And it says it all. It's really quick from getting your camera into position, ready to take the shot, and you get that photograph. Wild animals, birds, very skittish. You often have seconds to get your camera in position and take that shot. So it's a very simple and revolutionary piece of kit. So SpeedieGimbal, it's basically a ball and socket. So this reminds me of my days in orthopedic theatres when you're doing hip replacements and you've got a ball and socket, a hip replacement, just like your hip. So what you have is you have a ball and you have a socket. Now some people like to add the ball to the camera lens base plate, and some people like to add the cup. It doesn't really matter. Some people say if you put the ball on the monopod, the monopod then becomes a walking stick. Ideally, when you're doing wildlife photography, a monopod is the way to go. If you're getting into difficult areas, tight areas, you want as little disturbance as possible, you can get into position and you get the picture, and life is so much easier. So everyone's got their own preference. There's no right, no wrong on how you set it up. One word of caution, there is no locking mechanism in this. Basically, on this one, it has got magnets. There is a variety that comes without magnets. That magnets are only there to just make it a wee bit more stiffer when you articulate or turn the joint. You really have got a great movement in this. It's just like a hip joint. That's what I keep saying. It's just like the hip joint. So what you have is you've got a socket and a ball. They come with the adapter, screws, various sizes to fit various, obviously a lot of camera equipment's got different sizes of threads. On my Gitso monopod, I like to have the ball basically fitted. So I have to remove the screw, and you basically just screw in the head onto the monopod, which will go eventually. It does take a second to get it lined up, but once it goes on, you're cooking by gas. It's not easy when you've got a camera in front of you. Now, this goes on to the faceplate of the lens. Now, one other added security measure and a safety measure, it's called SpeedieGimbal also supplies a strap harness type system. This is a necessity, I think, for safety. As I said before, there's no guarantee that your camera isn't going to fall, so you have to keep hold of it. So basically what you get is you get the strap and you get a base plate and a carabiner. The strap goes over your shoulder. You're able to carry your camera lens. So what with this safety, I would say, measure is you put your plate onto your base of your lens foot and tighten it up. This is what's going to save your camera falling, because if you take your hand off, as I say, there is nothing to stop your camera falling. So you have to keep hold of it, and you screw your cup into basically the base of it. Now the beauty of this is it's not easy to show because I don't have it's a quick video, but basically the ball goes in and you have full movement then of the lens, but please make sure you keep hold of your camera and be cautious. The idea is you're basically walking along with your monopod, have it set to the height that you like to use it at, walk along with it, camera in your left hand, monopod in your right hand. You see your subject, be a bird, squirrel, whatever. You basically lift your camera up onto the monopod. You're securing your camera. You're able then to get some shots. Nowadays with the modern cameras, you're able to use sort of fast ISO speeds high ISO speeds, you know, things that years ago would cause a lot of noise in images. You want your camera to be as steady as possible. You know, this is not going to make the camera steady. Basically, the monopod is going to take the weight of your camera lens and help reduce movement and give you a bit more of a steady, you know, platform. But with the high ISO, that compensates for the low shutter speeds that you're probably going to have. Considering that if you're using a 400mm lens, you might be taking 1/25 of a second, you know, you might be 200 of a second, which in some ways, if you're hand holding, you would have movement. But this is a great invention. Certainly highly recommend anyone doing wildlife photography, aviation photography, motorsports, any type of photography this could be adapted to. Landscape photography, you know, you've got all the time in the world to set your camera up on a tripod, 3-angular tripod. They're heavy, they're cumbersome, you know, nothing to scare away in the landscape. You can set your camera on, screw it in, but when you're doing wildlife photography and you go along, you put your 3-legged tripod out, you put your camera onto the plate, you lock it in, the bird's gone, or the animal's disappeared. You know, they're very skittish. They see you and they're away. You can have seconds to take that image, and this system is fantastic. It really is absolutely fantastic. Not the cheapest, some people would say. I think it's an investment. I don't think this is something that would need to be replaced. I think this is a once in a lifetime buy, and I certainly highly recommend having a look at this. There's other stuff on his website as well. I'll put a link into the video for where to buy this stuff. But I really do think this is a great thing. I'm still learning, I'm still practicing. I may change my setup to opposite, where I have the cup on the monopod and the ball on the actual camera lens plate. At this present moment, I like it this way because I feel when I'm holding the camera on the monopod, it's downward pressure, I just feel a bit more secure. But that's up to everyone's preference. But honestly, I recommend this. It's a fantastic piece of kit, innovation. It's just a complete game changer for wildlife photography in general. So I hope that helps everyone, and I will try and do a proper video out on the field using it to show everyone how I use it or how it's recommended. There's loads of videos on Colin's website. Colin Brister, absolute gentleman, very highly regarded wildlife photographer. He has invented this piece of kit, a photographer for photographers, you know, and he has shown that, you know, this is how you do it, and this will help people. It will help people take some of these cracking pictures. You know, getting a photograph of a robin, kingfisher, you know, a squirrel, blue tit, long-tailed tit, whatever. You know, there's such a great feeling of getting that great photograph. You know, you don't have to be a professional to get a lovely picture. You do not have to be professional. You know, gone with the days, the new cameras now, certainly new mirrorless cameras, you can get away with high ISO rates, handheld shots. Old DSLRs, you still got to be aware of, you know, the film speed compared to the lens. You've got movement, you know, and as I said, quite often in wildlife photography, you know, you're going to be running a high ISO versus a relatively slow shutter speed, and you want as much stability as possible to get that sharp image.